There is someone in your life right now. Maybe it's a coworker, a friend, someone you follow online, and somewhere deep in your mind, a voice whispers something you would never say out loud. They're better than me. You've heard that voice. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That quiet, erosive belief that someone else has more, deserves more, more. And for years, maybe your whole life, you've been living inside that lie. But what if that voice isn't the truth? What if it isn't even yours? What if everything you've been told about confidence, about worth, about your place in this world was designed to keep you small? Today, that changes. What you're about to hear is not motivation. It is not positivity. It is not a pep talk. This is philosophy. This is psychology. This is war fought entirely inside your own mind. And by the end of this video, you will never see yourself the same way again. If you've ever felt like you weren't enough, hit subscribe right now and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because what I'm about to tell you took philosophers 2,000 years to understand, and most people will go their entire lives without learning it. 1. The lie you've been living. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you walked into a room and thought, without hesitation, without apology, I belong here, completely, fully, as I am? When was the last time you felt that? For most people, the honest answer is almost never. Instead, there's a script running in the background, a quiet, automated program you didn't write, but somehow learned. It sounds like this. Don't get too confident. You'll embarrass yourself. Who do you think you are? There are people smarter than you, more talented, more experienced, more deserving. That script, that lie, was installed in you, probably before you were even old enough to question it, by schools that rank you, by parents who warned you not to get too big for your boots, by a culture that calls ambition arrogance and calls humility weakness, by social media that constantly relentlessly shows you everyone else's highlight reel while you sit with your unedited reality. And so you learn to shrink, to qualify your opinions before you voice them, to say, I'm not sure, but before every idea, to apologize for taking up space. That is the lie. The Stoics saw this clearly, with a precision that still cuts through the noise 2,000 years later. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man on earth in his time, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing that for Rome. He wasn't writing it for history. He was writing it for himself. Because even the emperor, the man who commanded armies, had to remind himself every single morning not to surrender his mind to the opinions of others. Think about what that means. If Marcus Aurelius had to fight this battle every day against self-doubt and the crushing weight of comparison, what does that tell you about the nature of this struggle? It tells you this is universal, and it tells you it is a choice. The lie you've been living isn't a fact. It's a habit, a deeply grooved habit of perception that tells you the world is a hierarchy, and you're somewhere near the bottom. But here's what the Stoics understood that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm. The hierarchy you believe you're trapped in, you built it yourself, inside your own mind. And what the mind builds, the mind can dismantle. But before we talk about how to dismantle it, you need to understand something about power, something the Stoics called the inner citadel, something most people have never been taught. And it might be the most important idea you encounter this year. 2. The Stoic secret of inner superiority. The word superiority makes people uncomfortable. We've been taught to be suspicious of it. We associate it with ego, with entitlement, with the kind of person who walks into a room and makes everyone else feel small. But that is not what the Stoics meant, not even close. The Stoic concept of inner superiority has nothing to do with other people, nothing to do with comparison, Nothing to do with beating someone, impressing someone, or being better than someone. It has everything to do with your relationship with yourself. Epictetus, a man who was born a slave, who was beaten and crippled by his master, who had every external reason to feel inferior, wrote something that rewired the way philosophers think about power. Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. Read that again, slowly. He is not saying accept defeat. He is not saying be passive. He is not saying suffer quietly. He is saying stop defining your worth by what happens to you. Stop defining your power by what you can control in the external world. Locate your power, your real unbreakable power, in the only place it has ever truly lived, inside you. This is what the Stoics called the hegemonic, the ruling faculty, the command center, the part of you that no emperor can touch, no rejection can reach, no failure can destroy. And here is the secret that changes everything. When you operate from this place, when you root your identity not in outcomes, not in approval, not in comparison, but in your own values, your own judgment, your own unshakable sense of self, something shifts in you that other people can feel. They can't name it, they can't explain it, but they feel it. It's the quality that makes certain people walk into a room and make the air different. Not because they're the loudest, not because they're the most decorated, but because they carry themselves like someone who needs nothing from the room. That quality has a name. The ancient Stoics called it dignity. We might call it presence. Psychologists today call it secure attachment or unconditional self-worth. It all points to the same thing. A person who has found their inner citadel does not need the world to confirm their value, because they already know it. And here is what makes this idea so radical, so dangerous to the ordinary way of thinking. You don't earn this. You don't achieve it after enough accomplishments. You don't unlock it once you're successful enough, loved enough, respected enough. You claim it, right now, as you are, but most people never do. And the reason why, the psychological reason, is darker than you think. 3. Why most people feel inferior. Let's get precise about this. Because vague answers produce vague solutions. Why do most people feel inferior? Not occasionally, not in moments of genuine struggle, but persistently, chronically, as a kind of default background radiation of the self. Here's what psychology tells us, and what the Stoics intuited long before there was a field called psychology. Reason 1. We are wired for comparison. The human brain is a prediction and calibration machine. It doesn't experience reality directly. It experiences reality relative to reference points. And from the moment you are old enough to understand that other people exist, your brain begins ranking. Faster, slower, bigger, smaller, more, less. This was survival logic. In a tribal society, knowing your position in the social hierarchy meant knowing whether you were safe, whether you'd eat, whether you'd be protected or abandoned. The problem is that this ancient hardware is now running in a modern world where your reference group is no longer 30 people in a village. It's 8 billion people, and the most curated, filtered, exceptional versions of them, available instantly on a device you carry in your pocket. You were never built to compete against the entire world simultaneously. But now your brain is trying to, and it is losing every time. Reason 2, we confuse identity with performance. Here is one of the most destructive cognitive patterns a human being can develop. The belief that who you are is defined by what you do, what you earn, what you produce, or what other people think of you. Psychologists call this contingent self-worth. Your worth is contingent, dependent on external factors you cannot fully control. When those factors go well, you feel valid. When they go wrong, you feel worthless. Seneca, writing to his friend Lucilius 2,000 years ago, described this trap with devastating accuracy. He wrote, "It is not that I am brave, but that I know what things are truly to be feared." What he understood, and what most people never grasp, is that the deepest fear isn't failure. It's the collapse of identity that failure seems to bring. We don't fear losing the job. We fear that losing the job means we are a loser. We don't fear rejection. We fear that rejection confirms we are unworthy. The loss isn't external. The wound is internal. And it happens because we fused who we are with what we achieve. Reason 3. We inherited our self-concept. We never chose it. This is perhaps the most overlooked truth in all of psychology. Before you had the capacity to evaluate yourself critically, before you had the cognitive tools to question what you were being told, other people told you who you are. A teacher's offhand comment, a parent's frustration in a moment of exhaustion, a group of kids who laughed at the wrong moment, a report card, a ranking, a role you were assigned in a family dynamic. These moments, small, sometimes forgotten, wrote the first draft of your self-concept, and that first draft, in most people, is never revised. They just keep living it, unconsciously, automatically, as if it were objective truth. Marcus Aurelius understood this. His meditations are, at their core, a relentless act of revision, an emperor sitting alone at night, rewriting the stories he had inherited, challenging every assumption, testing every belief. He writes, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The story you've been living, that is the impediment. And learning to rewrite it, that is the way." But here is the critical distinction that most people miss. The one that separates quiet inner power from loud, hollow ego. 4. The difference between arrogance and inner power. When most people hear, "act as if you are the best," they think of a certain type of person. Loud, boastful, domineering. The kind of person who needs to make others feel small to feel tall. They think arrogance, and they recoil. Because we have all been around arrogance. We know what it feels like. There is nothing attractive about it, nothing inspiring. It makes the air heavy and the room smaller. But true inner power is arrogance's opposite, not its cousin. Let me show you the difference with a psychological model the Stoics would have immediately recognized. Arrogance is a defense mechanism. Inner power is a foundation. The arrogant person needs to be seen as the best because somewhere beneath the performance they don't believe they are. Their superiority is a construction, a fiction they must constantly maintain, reinforce, and defend. Every challenge threatens to expose the emptiness underneath, and so they perform. They dominate. They diminish others, not from strength, but from fear. Psychologically, arrogance is anxiety dressed in expensive clothes. Inner power is different, completely, categorically different. The person with true inner power doesn't need to be seen as the best. They don't need the room's acknowledgement, the crowd's applause, the boss's validation. They operate from a self-concept that is not threatened by criticism, not inflated by praise, not destroyed by failure. They can lose a competition and feel fine. Not because they don't care about excellence. They care deeply, but because their identity isn't riding on the outcome. They can be wrong about something and admit it immediately. Not because they're weak, because they're secure enough to be wrong without it meaning something about their fundamental worth. They can sit quietly in a room full of loudly impressive people and feel completely unhurriedly at ease, not because they're unaware of the others, but because they're not running a comparison algorithm in their head. That is the person this video is asking you to become. Epictetus described this quality as living according to nature, meaning living in alignment with reason, with your deepest values, with the ruling faculty of your mind, rather than the reactive, emotional, comparative noise of your ego. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself. Master of himself, not master of others, not master of circumstances, not master of outcomes, himself." This is the pivot point. This is where the philosophy becomes practical, because mastery of self doesn't happen through inspiration. It doesn't happen through motivation. It doesn't happen through willpower alone. It happens through specific, deliberate psychological shifts, ones you can make today, starting now. 5. Psychological shifts to apply today. Let's get tactical, because philosophy without application is just decoration. Here are 5 psychological shifts, drawn from Stoic practice and modern psychology, that will begin to rewire the way you see yourself. Shift 1. Stop narrating. Start observing. Your brain never shuts up. There is a constant running commentary about what's happening, what it means, whether it's good or bad, whether you're succeeding or failing, whether people like you or don't. Most people are completely fused with that commentary. They don't hear thoughts. They are their thoughts. Every negative story the mind tells becomes an article of faith. The Stoic practice, what Marcus Aurelius called objective representation, is this. When a thought arises, don't immediately inhabit it. Step back. Observe it. Ask, is this a fact or is this an interpretation? They think I'm an idiot is an interpretation. He didn't laugh at my comment is a fact. I'm not good enough for this is an interpretation. I haven't done this before is a fact. The moment you can see your thoughts from the outside, rather than living inside them, their power over your self-concept begins to dissolve. Psychologists call this cognitive diffusion. The Stoics called it philosophical discernment. The result is the same. You become the one watching your mind, not the one trapped inside it. Shift 2. Redefine what you're competing for. Here is a question that will feel simple but hit hard. What, exactly, are you trying to win? Most people, if they're honest, are trying to win a game called being better than other people, better looking, more successful, more admired. Further along, and that game has a fatal design flaw. You can never fully win it, because there will always be someone ahead, someone with more, someone further along. The goalpost never stops moving. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "Contend with this man, not with him. Contend with yourself. Think of what you wish to accomplish, and let that set the measure for you." The shift is this. Stop trying to beat the person next to you. Start trying to be more aligned with the person you're capable of becoming. That is a game you can actually win. And more than that, it is a game that generates genuine, unshakable confidence. Because you're no longer at the mercy of what anyone else does. Your only reference point is yesterday's version of you. And yesterday's version of you, you already beat them. Every single day you grow. Shift 3. Act from values, not from approval. This one is the hardest and the most transformative. Every time you act in order to get approval, every time you shape your opinion to match the room, say yes when you mean no, perform confidence you don't feel, or hide who you are to avoid judgment, you erode your self-concept. Not slowly, quickly, because your brain is watching. And every time you betray your own values to please someone else, a neural message is sent, "My opinion of you matters less than their opinion of you." Repeat that pattern enough times, and it becomes an identity. The person who bends, who performs, who can never be fully trusted by themselves. Marcus Aurelius was ruthless about this. He wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." The practice is this. Before you speak, before you act, before you decide, ask not, "What will they think of me?" but "What does my deepest self know to be right?" And then do that, regardless of how the room responds. It will be uncomfortable. You will lose some approval, but you will gain something worth far more. Trust in yourself. And nothing builds identity like trusting yourself. Shift 4. Use adversity as evidence of capability. The inferior mindset treats difficulty as proof of inadequacy. When something is hard, the voice says, "See? You can't do this. Others could handle it. You're struggling because you're not good enough." The Stoic mind runs a completely different algorithm. Epictetus taught that every obstacle is not a contradiction to your development. It is your development. The fire does not destroy the gold. It reveals it. Every difficult situation you've survived, every failure you've lived through, every rejection you've absorbed, every setback you've navigated, is evidence of a capability most people never develop. The capacity to keep going. Stop treating your scars as proof you lost. Start reading them as proof you fought. Shift 5. Practice the discipline of perception. Marcus Aurelius wrote these words to himself. Again, in his private journal, with no audience in mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is not a passive statement. It is a discipline, a practice. Every morning, before the world comes in, before the noise starts, before the comparisons begin, take 60 seconds, deliberately, consciously, and remind yourself of the following. I am not my circumstances. I am not my history. I am not the story others have told about me. I am the one who chooses how to interpret this day, and I choose to interpret it as someone who belongs, someone who is enough, someone who acts from strength, not from fear. This is not affirmation. This is not wishful thinking. This is philosophical practice. The deliberate training of perception that the Stoics understood was the true work of a human life. But psychological shifts alone are not the whole picture, because there is something beyond mindset, something the Stoics talked about as a kind of presence that is felt before it is understood. They called it gravitas. We might call it silent dominance. And it is something you build, not in moments of triumph, but in moments no one sees. 6. How to build silent dominance. Silent dominance is not a personality trait. It is not charisma. It is not good looks or physical size or a deep voice. It is the quality that radiates from a person who has done the work, the inner work, consistently, in private, without applause. Let me describe this person to you, so you can recognize them when you meet them, and recognize when you're becoming them. They don't announce themselves. They don't require the room's attention to walk into it with full authority. They listen more than they speak, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are genuinely interested in what others reveal. When they do speak, the room changes, not because of volume or wit, but because their words carry weight. The weight of someone who means what they say, who has thought about it, who has something at stake. They are not rattled by provocations. When someone challenges them, they don't flare or fold. They consider. They respond. And that steadiness, that refusal to be emotionally hijacked, communicates something profound. It says, I have found something inside myself that you cannot reach. That is the inner citadel that Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius wrote about, and it is built, brick by brick, day by day, through specific practices. Here they are. Practice 1. Keep promises to yourself before you keep them to anyone else. Every time you make a commitment to yourself, wake up at 5 a.m., finish the work, resist the distraction, say the hard thing, and you keep it. Your nervous system registers something important. I can trust myself. And a person who trusts themselves, they carry that trust everywhere. You feel it in their handshake, in their eye contact, in the way they don't need to look around the room to check how they're landing. Practice 2. Develop the discipline of silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. They fill silence with noise because silence feels like absence, like an absence of value, of presence, of importance. But the person who has developed their inner power has learned that silence is not absence. Silence is gravity. When you are not compelled to fill every pause, defend every silence, explain every choice. You project a kind of ease that is deeply magnetic. You seem like someone who has nothing to prove, and that is precisely the kind of person everyone wants in the room. Practice 3. Consume less. Create more. The soul shrinks on a diet of pure consumption. Scrolling, watching, comparing, taking in the world passively as an audience member in your own life. Creation. Building something, writing something, making something real with your hands, your mind, your time, is the practice of becoming a subject rather than an object, an agent rather than a bystander. Seneca warned with urgency that rings true today. Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est. Everything is alien to us. Only time is ours. The person who creates chooses how their time is spent. The person who only consumes is always at the mercy of what's being offered. Practice 4. Let go of the need to be understood. This is a subtle one, but it is one of the most liberating practices available to you. Most of the suffering caused by other people's opinions comes from a single source: the belief that you need them to understand you, to see you correctly, to represent you fairly. But consider what Epictetus said: seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourself. Other people's understanding of you is an external thing. It is outside the dichotomy of control. It is not yours to manage. The moment you stop requiring people to understand you correctly, stop exhausting yourself correcting misrepresentations, stop performing explanations, stop over-communicating to avoid being misread, something remarkable happens. You become unmovable. You become, in the truest sense, free. Practice 5. Carry your philosophy in your body. This is the intersection of mind and matter that people often ignore. Your body is not a vehicle for your philosophy. It is your philosophy made physical. The person who moves slowly and deliberately, who breathes deeply, who holds their posture with ease rather than effort, who looks people in the eye not from aggression but from genuine presence, that person's body is saying something before a single word is spoken. It says, "I am at home in myself." The Stoics called this walking according to virtue. It wasn't abstract. It was literal. The way you move, eat, rest, train, these are daily votes for the kind of person you are becoming. None of this is dramatic. None of it requires a single external circumstance to change, but practiced daily, in silence, in discipline, in the radical act of choosing your perception. These practices compound, slowly at first, then suddenly. And one day, not too long from now, you will walk into a room and feel it. That ground beneath your feet, that quiet, unshakable sense of, I am exactly where I am supposed to be, and I am exactly who I am supposed to be. Which brings us to the only thing left to talk about, the most important thing. Not what you practice, not even why you practice it, but who you become. 7. Final identity rebirth conclusion. There is a moment, and I believe you have felt it, even if briefly, even if it was so subtle you almost missed it, when everything goes quiet. Not the world. The world is still loud, the noise is still there, but something inside you goes quiet. A stillness you can almost touch. In that stillness you know, not from argument, not from evidence, not from anyone telling you, you just know, I am enough, exactly as I am, right now. That is not arrogance, that is not delusion, that is not toxic positivity. That is what the Stoics called eudaimonia, flourishing. The state of a person who is living in full alignment with their nature, their reason, their values, their deepest self. And it is your birthright, not when you earn enough, not when you lose the weight, not when the relationship works, or the business succeeds, or the world finally gives you the recognition you deserve. Now, Marcus Aurelius, emperor, philosopher, warrior, father, and deeply human man, wrote this in the solitude of his tent on a military campaign. Confine yourself to the present, not the past where your old identity was written for you. Not the future where you imagine the version of yourself who finally deserves to feel good. The present, this moment, this breath, this version of you making this choice in this room right now. This is where identity is reborn, not in dramatic moments of transformation, in the small, quiet, unremarkable moments where you choose, again and again and again, to be the person you know you are. To speak when fear says be quiet. To move forward when doubt says wait. To hold your head up in the room where comparison wants to pull you down. To act as if you belong, not because you've proven it, but because belonging is never something you prove. It is something you claim. You claim it by showing up fully, by acting without apology, by living from the inside out. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of history's greatest teachers of freedom, said it best. He said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." What is in your power? Your attention, your perception, your values, your response, your decision, in this exact moment, about who you are going to be. Not the version of you that the world created through its judgments and expectations and comparisons. The version of you that has always existed beneath all of that, waiting, patient, undefeated. You are not the sum of what has happened to you. You are not the labels that were attached to you. You are not the slowest version of your progress. You are not less than. You are not behind. You are not unworthy. You are a mind with the capacity to choose. And that capacity, right here, right now, makes you the equal of every human who has ever drawn breath. Not equal in achievement, not equal in talent, not equal in circumstance, equal in the thing that matters more than any of those things, the freedom to decide who you are. Act as if you are the best, not because you have beaten anyone, not because you have won anything, not because you are without flaws or fears or failures, but because the best version of you, the one rooted in values, grounded in self-knowledge, moved by purpose rather than panic, is not a destination. It is a decision, made daily, starting today. Seneca wrote, "Stop being everywhere, in everyone else's life, in everyone else's judgment, in everyone else's story of who you are. Come home to yourself, fully, finally." That is Stoicism. That is the philosophy. That is the work. And you are already capable of it. If this video moved something in you, if there was a moment where something landed, where a thought hit differently, where you felt something shift, then you already understand what philosophy can do. Subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the Stoics, into the psychology of identity, resilience, and what it actually means to live a life of meaning rather than noise. Share this with someone who needs it, someone who has been living inside the lie, someone who has been shrinking when they should be standing. You know who they are, and comment below. I want to know, what was the one sentence in this video that hit the hardest? What was the thing you needed to hear? Tell me in the comments. Because the work doesn't stop at the video. The work starts the moment you close this screen and choose, consciously, deliberately, the person you're going to be. That person is already inside you. Go find them.